A few years ago, I was doing some work with a church in Florida. And while I was there working with them, the Lord said to me, there's a lot of problems in this church. Their finances were down, high unemployment, and we need to do something about it. And so I talked to the people. What's one of the main problems in the church? Everybody agreed. One of the biggest problems is unemployment. A lot of the families out of work. So I asked the Lord, this is what the Lord told me to do. He said, I want you to gather the men of the church on Tuesday and Thursday morning at 6 a.m. Now, in my thinking, I thought, Lord, that's really not a good plan. 6 o'clock in the morning on Tuesday and Thursday? I had about 15 show up. I was shocked. But in less than a month's time, every family in that church had a job.
Good God.
Every family in that church had a job. We come together. I do just a little bit of teaching on prayer. And I'd say, this is what we're going to pray for. I had one man stand up one time in the back of the church. He was there. I don't know why he was there. He didn't believe in what we were doing, he said. He said, this is really foolish. He said, when you get to be 50 years old, if you're out of work, it's over. You don't have a chance. Nobody's going to hire you. I mean, he was kind of a grassy old guy. And then for the next couple of weeks, I didn't see him. Maybe 3 weeks or so. And I thought, well, I guess he just kind of gave up on it. And then he came in one morning at 6 o'clock. And he's there and he was saying, hey, I want to say something. He said, what you're doing here really works. He said, I got a call the other day and I was offered a job, best job I ever had in my life. There's power when people come together to pray.
Amen.
Some years ago, my son was traveling with the State Department and he was in Korea. And he thought, wow, I'm in Seoul, Korea. I'm going to go to Dr. Cho's church. He went to the church and he said, Dad, it was just awesome. And he signed me up for all kinds of every mailing they ever did and all kinds of stuff. And he signs me up for this. And he said, when I got there, they knew right away I was American. I mean, it stands out, you know, he would never pass for Oriental. But they took me in and set me with a family that spoke English. There was interpreters and there were things like that and ways of understanding his service. That wasn't a problem. They set me with a family that spoke English. And he said they took care of me while I was there and they told me what was going on and what to expect and all that. And he said, being with the State Department, at a certain time I had to call in. And he said, I asked them where I might find the phone and they instructed me. And he said, you know, the service is going on during this time. And he said, I had to slip out for a few minutes and find the phone. And he said, I followed their directions as best I could. And I got to where I thought the room was. They said the phone was. And when I opened the door, he said, Dad, you would not believe it. Hundreds of people were laying on their faces before God. He said there was monitors all around the room focused on the congregation, focused on the platform. People that were praying and seeking God. This is why Paul Young-E Cho built a church of 1 million people, is because he, just like Spurgeon, had a boiler room somewhere that was a powerhouse that brought the power of God into that church. Yeah. This is why Seoul, Korea, this church was built in the most impoverished area of Seoul, Korea, and it's now one of the richest areas in the whole city because he brought the power of God not only into the church but into the city. What do you think God could do here?
Good God.
Now, not just men need to pray, women need to pray too, but again, I'm telling you, you need to take the lead. You need to take the lead. In my house, it's my responsibility to pray for my children. My wife prays with me. But I'm not waiting for her to say, hey, come on, it's my responsibility. As my kids are going out the door to school now, I only have one left at home now, but this goes back for a long time. My kids are getting ready to go to school. They know they stop at the door. Dad's going to put his arms around them. He's going to bless them and ask God to protect them and watch over them that day. He's going to ask God to open their hearts to Him and their minds to learning. He's going to ask God to bless them and keep them. It's time that the men of the church begin to stand up and take the responsibility because, gentlemen, you will make a difference.
Amen.
Amen.
Go to the ball game. During the Super Bowl, set up somewhere and bring in your favorite foods and overeat and have fun and yell and scream and put it on the overhead and make a screen as big as possible and have fun. There's nothing wrong with that. But also there's a time that men need to lay on their faces in some place together, like this church or somewhere where you would come together and meet, lay down on your face and begin to cry out, God, we need you. Yes. We need you. We need you. Our town needs you. Our church needs you. Our state needs you. Lord knows our nation needs God today. It is because that the church has stopped praying. It is because that the men of the church have stopped taking responsibility. It is because people today want to go to church and just sit there and not be bothered, put in a little money and leave and not think about it again for a week. That our nation is in the shape it's in today.
Preach that glorious gospel.
Amen.
Yes.
Our nation right now is being threatened with losing liberties one after another. One after another. Things that, Fred, when you and I were young men, we would have been embarrassed to even talk about. But today they do parades about it.
Yes. Yeah.
Come on.
You see, back this summer when the Supreme Court, before the Supreme Court made their decision about gay marriage in America, one of the attorneys that was for gay marriage, he stood up before the Supreme Court and he said, I want you to know that this issue is not really about marriage at all. The whole purpose of this movement is to silence the church. You see, you're losing your liberties, and we sit silent, and we don't even talk to God about it anymore.
Come on.
There is the greatest prayer movement in the world there has ever been. But most of it is not in America. Very few percentage-wise people in America are praying. But it's time that we begin to get on our faces. And if we don't, we're going to find them coming and taking away more liberties and more liberties and more liberties. So we will not even be able to afford to have a church building. You won't even have to worry about a parking lot. Because when they start taxing, when they take your tax-exempt status. Now, this is what's happened in Canada. When you do what they say that you... Did you hear about the mayor in Houston, Texas, that wrote to the pastors and said, before you preach a message, you have to submit all your notes to me.
Yes.
For approval. For approval. I thank the Lord for the Supreme Court of Texas that stood up against her and said, no, you're out of line. But let me tell you what some pastors did. You may have already heard this. You didn't tell me to stop.
I don't want you to.
Pastors as far away as Australia and Europe started sending all their notes to her office. Her office was so bombarded she couldn't have found anybody in Texas. She couldn't have found anybody in her city, any pastor's notes to look at. They were notes coming in from all these pastors, sermon outlines and everything else, and they were just piling up in her office. Folks, it's time that we begin to stand up as a church and speak out. We need God to raise up a voice in the church, but before God can raise a voice in the church, we need to lay before Him day and night, crying out to God, asking for help and direction.
Amen.
It's time that we begin to return the power to the church. They say the reason the church in America is not doing very well, it's lost its influence. And the reason we've lost our influence, we've lost our power.
Amen.
And the reason we've lost our power is because we stopped praying. The reason we stopped praying is because everybody's just thinking somebody else is doing it. And everybody is saying, well, we pay a pastor for that. I had a man come to me a few days ago. He was upset about his pastor. I don't know why he wanted to talk to me. I am pro-pastor. But he said, I couldn't believe this, he said. I saw a report the other day of our finances in the church. And we've had some guest speakers to come in and we paid them. And our pastor's sitting right there getting paid. I don't understand that. Why are we bringing people in and paying them when we got a pastor to do that? I thought, man, you missed the vision. You missed the vision. It's not about money. When you focus on money, you won't have any.
Amen.
When you focus on people, you'll have everything you need. It's not about buildings. If you focus on a building, that's all you're going to have. And you'll always have trouble with it. You focus on people, you'll have everything you need. You see, that's what Jesus did. That's what he did. That's what it's all about. He said, go into the world and preach the gospel. He didn't say go into the world and raise money. There is one thing that God has given me grace for years and years ago. I do not let money become any part of anything that I do. I don't care if somebody offered me $1 million to go somewhere and do something, unless I prayed about it and I felt this is what God wanted me to do. And no way, I'm not going. I'm not going. And I'm going to tell you, folks, I have been poor, like I shared last night. Didn't have money for lunch. And God put $5 on the ground in front of me. And I've been rich. Now, rich is a relative word. Coming from Coburn, I was rich. Rich is better. God will not withhold any good thing from his children. But I don't focus on money. I don't focus on money. I will not give it a thought. I have a son who has climbed to the pinnacle of success. A young man to the pinnacle of success. Serves as a vice president of a major corporation. Was offered the position of president. Turned it down because he said, I don't want to take any more time from my family. And money is not a big deal to him. He'll tell you they greatly overpay me. They greatly overpay me. If money is your focus, you're not going to have much of it. And you're always going to worry about it. Even if you have a lot, you worry about it. If you had a lot, you worry about it. Focus on people. Go into all the world. Raise all the money you can. No, that's not what it says. Go into the world, preach the gospel. Go into the world, preach the gospel. I'll take care of your needs. I'll take care of your finances. I'll take care of everything. I'll give you a new parking lot if you need it to minister to people. I'll give you a new building if you need it to minister to people. I'll take care of you. Now, does that really work? Let me tell you what happened. A few years ago, I went to a church that had 4 people. Couldn't pay me a dime. I had no place to live. My wife and 4 children at that time slept on the floor of the church. I started a food bank ministry in that church. And do you know why I started? To be able to feed my family. I wasn't thinking as much about feeding the community as I was thinking about feeding my family. And let me tell you what happened when we focused on prayer. Now, Kevin walked through much of this with me. Prayer was our focus, and people was our focus, and following God's vision for that church was our focus. I went into a meeting one day, and I was we were getting ready to get a new church building, and there was a businessman there that day that was going to write a check for $2.3 million to buy this new church building for us. It wasn't costing that church a dime. You see, God's got all the money in the world. I don't know if that man was even a Christian that was buying a building for us. He never came to my church, but he wanted to buy me a church building. He wanted to buy me a church building. And while we're sitting there waiting for all the people to come together, we're in this big conference room, a table as long as this room is, and we're waiting for all these big executive people to come together. And he's sitting down and he said to me, now, Pastor, when we get this building, it's going to take a lot of money to fix it up in the inside and get it ready for church. Do you have money for that? And I said, I've got about $300,000. He said, oh, that ain't enough. I said, nobody to get us started. He said, son, I'm going to give you $300,000 today. I want you to know, I know firsthand, money is plentiful when you have vision.